Welcome to our very first broadcast on the Mindelo channel. Here we dive into a variety of interesting and informative topics to help you grow and succeed. Today, we're excited to discuss effective learning methods and achieving high marks. Stay tuned as we explore practical strategies and tips to boost your academic performance. And we really are thrilled to have you joining us for this deep dive. You know, when we think about getting high marks, it's so easy to just think, oh, I just got to grind, put in the hours.
Right, just brute force it.
Exactly. But the research, the actual solid evidence, it tells a different story. It's much more about studying smart, using, strategic ways to learn. So our mission today, we want to cut through all that noise, all the myths, and give you the most effective, actionable stuff. This deep dive is really tailored to get you up to speed on this quickly and, well, deeply.
That's the plan. We're aiming to pull out the really practical methods, things that are proven,
Right.
based on actual research, reliable sources.
Yeah.
Not just common wisdom that might not even work that well.
Okay, so let's just jump right in then. We all study, right? Or think we do. But what if there are these specific ways, these techniques that make our brains work smarter, not just harder? Because apparently they exist.
Oh, they absolutely do. And maybe one of the most powerful tools for really locking in learning long term, it's called retrieval practice.
Retrieval practice. Okay, so that's not just rereading my notes over and over or highlighting.
So exactly the opposite, actually.
Yeah.
It's about actively pulling information out of your memory, not passively reviewing it.
So more like closing the book and trying to scribble down everything I remember, or maybe explaining a concept out loud, to an empty room, even if I stumble.
Precisely that.
Yeah.
Or drawing a diagram from memory.
Yeah.
Trying to connect the dots yourself without looking. It feels harder, sure.
Yeah, I bet it does.
But that effort, that's what strengthens the memory. It shows you immediately, okay, I don't actually know this part. It flags the gaps. There's research like Agarwal's back in 2020 that really highlights this as like a cornerstone for solid long-term understanding.
Okay, so for me listening, this means I should be quizzing myself all the time, even if it's just informal.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. Making it a regular habit, even for a few minutes. It pays off hugely when you need to recall that info later, in an exam.
That makes a ton of sense. It's like a workout for your brain cells, right?
Good.
The struggle makes them stronger. But okay, what about time? If I'm juggling, say, 5 different subjects, does this retrieval stuff take more time up front?
That's a fair question. It might feel like it takes a bit more time right at the beginning compared to just skimming your notes again.
Yeah.
But the payoff is huge in terms of efficiency later. You spend way less time having to relearn stuff you've forgotten.
Okay, so quality over quantity. Less wasted effort down the line.
Exactly. It's about making that initial learning stick properly.
Okay, powerful. Now, speaking of wasted effort, the classic all-nighter. We've all been there, right? Trying to cram everything in at the last minute. What's the research say is the antidote to that?
Yes, the all-nighter. The antidote is definitely spaced practice. Sometimes it's called distributed practice. Basically, instead of one huge marathon study session.
Which feels heroic at the time.
Right. But isn't that effective? Instead, you revisit the material in shorter bursts, but spread out over time, at increasing intervals.
So I study something today, then maybe look at it again in a couple of days, then maybe a week later, something like that.
Exactly. You let yourself forget a little bit in between.
Wait, forgetting is good. That sounds wrong.
It sounds wrong, but it's actually key. That little bit of forgetting makes your brain work harder to retrieve the information the next time. And that effort strengthens the memory trace. It helps consolidate it. Weinstein and Smith did research on this back in 2016.
Yeah.
They showed really clearly that spacing out your study leads to much better recall, much better understanding than cramming. So for you, listen, if you want knowledge that actually lasts, this approach is crucial. It helps your brain make deeper connections too.
Wow. Okay, that's a total game changer for anyone who's ever felt like everything they crammed just evaporated the next day, which is probably everyone.
Pretty much.
All right, so we've got retrieval, we've got spacing. What about when I'm trying to study multiple things, like in one evening? Should I just block out time? 2 hours math, 2 hours history, or is there a better way?
That leads us perfectly into the third technique, interleaving. This is where you actually mix up different subjects or different types of problems within a single study session.
Oh, okay. So instead of math block, history block. I might do 30 minutes of math problems, then switch to 30 minutes of history reading, then maybe back to a different type of math problem.
Exactly. Or even within math, mixing up different types of questions instead of doing 20 of the exact same kind.
Why does that work? It feels like it would just confuse me.
You'd think so,
Yeah.
but it actually helps your brain get better at telling the difference between concepts or problem types. It forces you to, like, figure out which strategy or formula to use each time rather than just going on autopilot.
Ah, I see. So it makes you more mentally agile.
Precisely. It boosts your ability to discriminate and apply the right knowledge. Plus, it stops you getting bored or stuck on one thing and helps you keep up with other subjects too. Pan's research in 2015 pointed this out. Interleaving boosts learning efficiency. So for you, it can fight off mental fatigue and actually deepen your understanding across the board.
Okay, these study techniques, retrieval, spaced practice, interleaving, they sound really powerful for solo study time. But what about time spent in class? We spend hours there. How do we make the most of that? Is just showing up and listening enough?
That's a really critical point. Class time is incredibly valuable. And I know just passively listening isn't really maximizing it. Active listening and participation are key.
Active listening, like really tuning in.
Yes, but more than that, it's engaging mentally. Trying to anticipate where the teacher's going next, thinking of questions, challenging the ideas in your head, and, crucially, asking questions when you're unsure.
Yeah, asking questions. That can be tough for some people, though. If you're shy, maybe.
Definitely. But it clarifies doubts instantly, for you and maybe others too. A practical tip. If you are shy, maybe try preparing 1 or 2 questions before class based on the reading. Or even just sitting closer to the front can sometimes make you feel, a bit more connected and confident.
Preparing questions beforehand. That's a good strategy. Takes the pressure off thinking of something on the spot. What about taking notes? Is there a smart way to do that too, or just scribble everything down?
Oh, definitely a smart way. Note-taking shouldn't just be like automatic transcription. It needs to be an active process.
How so?
Well, instead of just copying word for word, you should be processing, summarizing, putting things in your own words. Maybe using a system like Cornell Notes, with the Q column and summary section. That forces you to review and synthesize later.
Right, I've heard of that.
Or even trying to draw little diagrams or mind maps as the lecture is happening, connecting ideas visually. For you, the act of processing and reorganizing the information while you're hearing it, that reinforces the learning right there and then. Your notes become a study tool, not just a record.
Okay, so smart techniques, active in class, but life gets busy. How do we keep all these assignments, tests, and study sessions organized? How do we avoid that awful last-minute panic?
Yeah, that's where organization and time management come in. Think of them as your academic GPS, basically, keeping you headed in the right direction.
So step 1 is probably use a planner.
Absolutely. But use it effectively. Don't just write down deadlines. Actively block out time for studying specific things. Schedule in those spaced practice review sessions we talked about. Work backwards from big deadlines.
Yeah, planning the process, not just the due date.
Exactly. It helps you prioritize and stops things from sneaking up on you. For your schedule, a well-managed planner brings clarity and cuts down on that arc, what do I do next?
Feeling. I can definitely relate to that feeling. Okay, planner first. What else?
Building on that, develop a proper study schedule. Break down big assignments or exam prep into smaller, manageable chunks.
Like, instead of study for history final, it's review Chapter 5 notes today, make flashcards for Chapter 6 tomorrow.
Precisely. Allocating specific times for these smaller tasks makes it feel less overwhelming and makes you much less likely to procrastinate. It gives you a clear roadmap, turning big, scary goals into achievable daily steps.
That sounds much less stressful. Okay, switching gears slightly. Some people are very visual learners, right? Reading dense text isn't always the best way for them to grasp concepts. Are there tools specifically for that?
Yes, definitely. For visual thinkers, mind mapping can be incredibly useful.
Mind mapping. That's like drawing diagrams.
Sort of. You start with a central idea, the main topic, in the middle of the page. Then you branch out with related subtopics, keywords, maybe even little drawings or symbols, connecting everything with lines.
So it lays it all out spatially, showing the connections.
Exactly. It helps you see the structure of the information, how different concepts relate to each other. Prodigy Game, for example, really highlights how visual tools like this can improve understanding. So for you, if you find yourself drawing things out to understand them, mind mapping could be a really powerful technique to add to your toolkit.
Cool. Okay, we've talked a lot about techniques and schedules. But what about the basics? Like our actual physical selves? It's easy to forget that when you're stressed about exams.
Oh, it's so easy to forget, and it's absolutely fundamental. Your physical and mental health are the foundation for everything else. If you're running on empty, none of these techniques will work as well.
So where do we start? Sleep.
Sleep is huge. You really need a regular schedule. Aiming for at least 8 hours a night isn't a luxury. It's essential for learning. That's when your brain actually consolidates memories, processing what you learned during the day.
So pulling an all-nighter actually hurts your memory of what you studied.
Massively. You're skipping the critical consolidation phase. Then there's nutrition. Eating balanced meals. Good fuel for your brain.
Right.
It really does impact focus and productivity.
Yeah, trying to study after only eating junk food. Not ideal.
Not ideal at all. And finally, exercise. Getting some regular physical activity is amazing for reducing stress, boosting energy, both things that directly help your academic performance. So for you, think of sleep, good food, and movement, not just as healthy habits, but as actual learning tools. They prep your brain and body to learn effectively.
That's a great perspective. Okay, one last area. We live in a digital age. Beyond our notes and textbooks, what about online resources? There's so much out there.
There's an incredible amount, and a lot of it's really high quality and accessible. Khan Academy is a fantastic example.
Oh yeah, I've heard of them. They have videos on everything, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Math, science, history, arts. All free. They've got videos, exercises, quizzes. You can learn at your own pace, fill in gaps in your understanding. It's incredibly comprehensive.
So if my textbook explanation isn't clicking, I could just hop onto Khan Academy.
Exactly. Find a different explanation. Practice it right there. Another great one, especially for making math more engaging, is Prodigy Math Game.
A game.
For math, yeah. It turns learning math concepts into this fun, interactive game. It's aligned with curriculum standards, adapts to the student's level, tracks progress. It makes practice feel less like a chore. So for you, exploring resources like these can be a great way to supplement your learning. Maybe find new ways to understand tricky topics.
Wow. Okay. We've covered a serious amount of ground here. I feel like you, listening, have got a whole arsenal of strategies now.
We definitely covered a lot.
Yeah. We started with those core study techniques, right? Retrieval practice, pulling info out.
Yeah.
Spaced practice, spreading it out. Interleaving, mixing it up. All about making your brain work smarter.
Smarter, not just harder.
Then making the most of class time active listening, better note-taking, getting organized with planners and schedules.
Yeah.
So crucial.
The foundation, really.
Right. And for visual learners, mind mapping,
Wow.
plus remembering the absolute basics, sleep, nutrition, exercise or learning tools.
Can't forget those.
And finally, tapping into those great online resources like Khan Academy or Prodigy. Seriously, combining even just a few of these can make such a difference in really learning effectively and, yeah, getting those high marks.
It really can. And maybe a final thought to leave you with.
Eh.
What if you just pick one, just one or two of these methods to try out consistently? Think about how that might shift things, not just your grades perhaps, but maybe your whole feeling about learning, about understanding things deeply.
Oh, I like that.
Because ultimately, these strategies aren't just about passing tests. They're about building real, lasting knowledge. So maybe reflect, which one sounds like it might fit you best right now? Which one could you experiment with this week?
That's a fantastic challenge, and one I really hope you take up. We're genuinely excited for you to try these methods and see the results. Thanks so much for joining us today for this deep dive into effective learning. We hope you'll tune in again here on the Mendello channel.